Welcome to Combos with Besties. In reality, today is about what it is like to be better every day when you're juggling all the things. I am sitting across from my sister-in-law, who happens to be my best friend for the last 10 years, Jen. She is a mom to 3 amazing kids I get to call my niece and nephews, works full-time in corporate finance, and is married to my brother, Justin, who also works full-time in IT. As we are recording, their kids are 13, 12, and 9 for context. So often, we hear creators and small business owners on podcasts talking about time management and systems. So today, I wanted to be deliberate and talk to the 71% of moms who work outside of the home, myself and Jen included. Life is about seasons, and the two of us are in very different seasons with kids and activities, and honestly, half the time I look at our schedule and it makes my head spin. But somehow, they're managing through the messy middle of kids in 3 different directions and handling it as gracefully as possible. Welcome to the Being Better Everyday podcast, where we make your days more peacefully productive while you're juggling all the things. I'm your host, Julie Wenslick, a millennial mom, finance professional, and founder of P&W Designs. I know that as a mom, business owner, corporate girly, or a combination of all 3 like myself, sometimes life can feel like a lot. With the simplicity in systems and being better every day, we create habits and routines that support your life, create calm in the chaos, and put the you back in your everyday. Grab those headphones, put on your shoes, and join me on a walk while we dig into today's episode. So hi Jen, welcome to the podcast, your debut to podcasting. First of all, thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so where do we start? Let's first outline the buckets of activities right now in your lives and walk me through, what are your kids' activities and the things you and Justin are involved in outside of all of that?
Okay, there's a lot. So both our boys are currently in Scouts, which are in 2 different locations, but on the same night. They are also in soccer, also tends to be on different nights, but the same location. And we have our middle, Madeline, is in dance and joined team competition this year, so she is at the dance studio 3 nights a week.
So if I'm adding that up, 2 Scouts, how many nights of soccer a week?
2. Well, with middle school soccer, there's currently 5, so 2 soccer teams for our oldest. So 5 nights a week 5 weeknights right now, but it's a short season for middle school, and then he does club sport for 2 nights a week.
And then Madeline's in dance 3 nights a week?
Correct.
There's church in there too, right?
Just starting. They will be doing religious ed on Wednesday nights.
And then what else do you guys do?
And then for us, we volunteer probably too much. Currently, I'm the president of our PTO at the elementary school, and I also am on the board for the soccer club. My husband coaches our youngest soccer team. He's on a tech committee for church, and I am on the faith formation committee at church.
I'm not even sure how many activities that is.
I don't know, but it's a lot, and that's okay though. We do it in small chunks, and it all works out.
Yeah. So, with that list, have you and Justin ever said no to anything? Or what do you guys decide to as yes as parents? How do you make that decision when it's literally a list that's at least 7 days a week long right now?
I mean, it has to fit in the schedule, and we all need to be able to get where we need to go. So that's priority 1. Priority 2, I mean, while we still volunteer a decent amount, I've had to scale back in certain groups. Currently I'm switching positions on the soccer board, which came up, and I had to evaluate if it was more time or less time in order to switch, and it was less time, so I was excited about that.
Did I know that? That you're switching positions?
Surprise! I don't know.
Yeah, I was I don't know if we talked about that.
So I was the volunteer coordinator, and I will be the treasurer going
Oh,
forward.
yeah, okay, we did talk about that.
So that'll be great, I think. It'll be a little bit easier, but more the behind the scenes. So more of the things that we've said yes to are more the behind the scenes flexible things, not necessarily have to be in a specific position at a specific time because our lives are a little bit crazy. So we've tried to navigate that way. have we said no was your question. Yes, but I would say it's not as often as it should be. We're getting there. I mean, elementary school is only a couple more years away, and so we are getting up. Currently, Justin's getting out of one of his positions with Cub Scouts. He's transitioning it to somebody else so that we can gracefully step away in a year and a half from that group as our boys get older and move on. And then we're trying to not say too many yeses to the next Cub Scout or Boy Scout group because it's just a lot of commitment.
And have the kids ever asked to do activities that you've said no to?
We've kind of made it clear that we don't have time to do everything, and so we try to choose the things that we really want to do, where we don't have time for 6 activities. They are all generally in
one sport.
2 activities a time, and I don't consider religion an activity from their choosing perspective.
Yeah. Well, and you've taken, maybe not you in particular, but I know Justin's had to change his season of life too, from the standpoint that he used to be in, I don't know if you call it golf club, but like
a golf league. So
golf league.
He can no longer do a structured golf league. Our compromise on that has been he can choose to golf with his friends at work, but only 2 to 3 times a season, and it can't be on a regular schedule. It needs to fit into when other things aren't going on. And it used to be every other week or every week.
Yeah. So obviously you're busy, at least 5 nights a week with multiple activities. Probably every Sunday for sure. So that's at least 6. And then soccer tournaments are on most of your Saturdays, right? Let's talk about, I call it Sunday reset, but how do you kind of set up, what do you do on Sundays or speed through it if you're busy throughout the weekend to set yourself up for the week?
So I use my planner that you, Mr. Lee, created for me. And sometime throughout the weekend, I will write down I lay all our activities out by the month, and then each week I look at that next week and say who needs to be where, do we have conflicts? Hopefully not. But, where does everybody need to be at what time? And I just write Monday through Friday. Everybody has their own row. I write what their activities are, and then right now in this fall is a little bit busier. It will slow down in the winter as, soccer subsides a little bit. But I write down, then my next step is meal planning and where can we fit meals in and how do I do that, and which days have to be quick or a crock pot, or if we have to grab, although we try not to do that more than once a week typically. But Sundays or Saturday, depending on when I have my free moment, that's when I kind of write it all down. Where does everyone need to be? And then on a daily basis, I'll look at our day and say, I already have it in my brain where everybody needs to be at what time and what their commitments are. Justin is not on the same path, and so I typically have to then give him that morning, okay. Or we do lunches together often during the week, and I will at lunchtime tell him who he needs to pick up, where he needs to be, if he has a meeting, because he tends to forget even his own meetings, and just kind of our evening schedule and conquer and divide.
And then I know you have it on the planner, but you also have it in your house so that everyone can see it. Do they use it?
I would say no. Yes, we do have a chalkboard calendar. It just depends on how much time I have during the week, but I typically write everybody's schedule down. I'd say my daughter sometimes will take a peek at it. The boys, all 3 of them, are not great at it. Even though it's available to them, they choose not to use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's typical. So you communicate with Justin then. So one of the things I didn't mention in the beginning with both of them working full-time is they also work for the same company. So they have the ability to actually see each other during the day, which is kind of cool. Although you don't actually have to work with him on a day-to-day basis, which is probably good. But
not very often. We're in 2 different departments, different floors of the building when we are in the office. And even at home, I guess. He works downstairs.
Yeah, he's on a different floor at home, too.
I don't see him. So typically, if we see each other, it is during lunch or... which we try to grab lunch together when we're in the office, as long as usually me isn't too busy, and then we also try to take a quick walk as well to kind of reset.
Does
Pretty
he
afternoon.
ever, like, pick which activity he wants to drive to, or do you just kind of say this is what you're doing?
I think
Yeah.
I assign
You
more
assign?
than ask. Although sometimes it won't matter to me, like, which direction I go. And so I might say, these are the two things that need to happen. Do you want to do A or do you want to do B? And he will choose. Or he'll say, I don't care, and then I assign.
Yeah. I know your mornings, let's see, 3 kids off to school, 2 different schools, right?
2 different schools,
2 different buses?
2 different buses.
Talk to me about what does the mornings look like for school and kind of time frame of activities and how you get everyone out the door on time in quotes.
All morning, including what I do myself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know your morning starts earlier than the family.
My morning routine. So I get up at 4:45 in the morning, and I'm pretty good about that. Usually I'm out of bed by 5. Sometimes I take 15 minutes to just center myself for the day. And so I get up, I typically work out, and I'm done working out by 5:45 most mornings. Then I get Braylon up, our oldest, at 5:45.
You actually get them up.
I do. Sometimes he sets an alarm, but he's pretty good at getting up. So I will wake him up. He gets up, and then he has a very simple morning routine of waking up, getting dressed, getting his bathroom things done, and he's ready to go. So he then has an hour, and in that hour, his bus comes around 6:50, and he has an hour to kind of just wake up. He sometimes will grab a small breakfast, but he's not a breakfast person. At that time, either the night before or the morning of, I am getting backpacks ready, taking a shower, getting ready for the day myself. Most of them actually take lunch at school now, so only occasionally I have to make lunches. But otherwise, it's making sure they have water bottles, planners are signed, everything is kind of packed up and ready for them to go in the morning. And then Braylon gets on the bus at 6:45, 6:50, whenever his bus gets here. And then I head off to work. Because his bus got bumped up a little bit this year, I've been waiting for him to get on the bus. If I don't have to go to work, if it's a work from home day, then I'll just go to work. If it's a go to work day, then I head off.
Like 7-ish or 6:45-ish?
After I get him on the bus. So
Okay.
6:40. I try to get into the office around 7. And then Justin takes over from there. I make sure typically that Madeline and Carson are awake and sort of moving, but Justin is in charge of getting them, making sure they have breakfast, making sure that they get dressed and are ready. Their bus is 8:07 this year. So
It's a big difference.
Yeah. So they have an extra hour to get going, but they're all super easy morning kids, so I do not have the struggles of
Convincing them to get up?
convincing them to get up
Yeah.
or whatever. But they most generally get mornings to chill. We don't have a lot of assignments for them in the morning. More of their assignments would be in the evening hours.
And has it changed as far as, like, the systems you have in the mornings as the kids have gotten older, or is it basically the same thing since they've all started in school?
I mean,
Besides the school
once
lunches, I guess.
they got to all going to elementary,
Yeah.
elementary school. Clearly there was the daycare school split for quite some time, but once they were all in elementary school, I think the schedule's been about the same. Justin is not a morning person, and therefore the reason he stays home. I then go in early so that I can be home for them after school, where he then works a little bit longer.
I think that's one of the coolest things that you guys have developed is that you basically have shifted your corporate hours early, and so that you can be done, in theory, around 3:30. And Justin is done at 4:30 then?
Yeah, somewhere around the 4:30, 5 o'clock hour. He's usually wrapping up and coming home. Really depends on those evening activities, who needs to be picked up where, and if he has a responsibility or not.
Yeah. But it's nice that you guys are able to, like, shift that you can work early and he can work normal hours so that like you said, one of you is home
Yes.
around the time the kids get home now.
Yeah, and as they've gotten older, I can be a little bit more flexible, so I don't have to be here when the kids get off the bus. I'm sure they always love it when I am, but I don't have to be here. They are able to be self-sufficient for 15 to 30 minutes if
Yeah.
a meeting run that's long, I try to give them a heads up in the morning if that's going to be the case.
I know I'm interrupting this episode, but I promise it's for a good reason. Can you believe we are in the fourth quarter of 2023? That means it's time to get your first ever dated Better Everyday Planner. The fall drop includes the all-new Brain Dump Planner Pad, as well as functional and cute stickers to make any planner stand out. So if you want your life as organized as a home edit pantry and as peaceful as a night with the kids staying at grandma's, then head to pwplanners.com/shop now. Have questions? Don't hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram. I'm only a DM away. So speaking of school, let's talk about systems you have to keep all the school things organized. So for me, I obviously don't have a little in school. And I've already told you how much I'm like, I'm not going to be able to keep track of all of this. But like the emails, the activities, the calendars, and even like the papers that come home and
Which are
having
far
to charge
less than they used to be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's all digital.
Oh, see, but I don't think that's a good thing.
It's not. I lose more that way, quite honestly. So I try to write everything down as soon as I find it into that planner, making sure that a new date or a new activity or a new whatever, school color day, whatever the thing might be, gets written down as soon as I see it. Otherwise, it gets forgotten. We have one family email address that we moved to a couple of years ago, which has helped kind of funnel the information that I can see it, Justin can see it. Clearly, I'm still the lead on it because organization isn't his thing. However, that has helped. He has accessibility easily into finding the things if he needs to. When they come home, we try to empty backpacks, plug in those Chromebooks, unpack lunches if they took a lunch that day, get their water bottles on the counter. Occasionally that doesn't happen until a little bit later in the evening if we're running around a bit. Fall and spring tend to be a little bit more running around. Winter, we kind of fall a little bit more into the routine. The calendars are a little bit lighter as a sports schedules aren't quite as crazy.
Yeah, the emails. So how often do you check that family email? Like every day or like multiple times a day?
Multiple times a day.
Because
but it just comes to my phone, so I see them as they come in, try to delete things that don't matter. So periodically, as I have free time, checking it and then circling back.
I know, I'm just thinking about like the like work emails plus my business email plus that someday. Like, no.
But you only have one kid. It honestly was not that hard with one kid. It was, you knew what day of the week it was and maybe what field trip was happening. Now I get more papers, probably less papers, but more emails and different schedules, and they're in different schools. With 3 kids, it can be a lot. Like, who brought this home?
Yeah.
Has happened before.
Well, I guess, because they don't really have the kids' names on them, do they?
A lot of times they don't, and sometimes our elementary school does some mailings, which I know now, but youngest and only, so it's only going home one time.
Oh.
Instead of, every kid bringing it home, which can be good. It can also be bad if your youngest and only is not the most organized child. I actually don't have problems. I do get things. But if they are not the most organized, which I've heard, then sometimes those things don't come home.
Right, because it's going to the youngest.
Right.
So we mentioned you work out. I would obviously put that in the take care of you space, but how do you take care of you through all of this? What would you classify that? Because obviously it looks different for us sometimes.
So working out is a non-negotiable during the week, unless I'm sick or really need the break. Last week I had to take a morning off because super behind at work and needed to meet deadlines. But generally that's a non-negotiable during the week. A little more flexible on the weekends, but during the week that's a non-negotiable. Certainly also trying to prioritize then food too, and making sure that we're having that diversity and not just eating crap, because fueling is very important. But then I try to do reading or take an extra walk. I do really enjoy the walks Justin and I get to do at lunchtime, just because it is a break. It's been a really nice break from work. It's been a really nice break.
Brain break is what I call
Brain break. It's a very good brain break. And then I honestly just enjoy hanging out with the kids and doing things for them. So, and volunteering. I don't think we would do all of those things. I get that's not necessarily
everyone's thing.
Everyone's thing, or super, but it does fill my cup up and helps me But certainly taking breaks, reading at night, and going to bed early.
Well, and I was going to say, so what's your biggest struggle? I feel like sleep would be your biggest struggle.
Usually.
Just because of the, like, length of your days.
Yeah. I mean, as the kids have gotten older, we used to put them to bed at 7, and that's not an option when they're not getting home until I fed them dinner one night last week at 7. Like, it's just not easy. So we try to get them in bed now by 8:30, and honestly, most nights I go to bed right after I get them to bed.
Well, but you also have a new way to relax too that you guys got this summer.
True. When we can get them to bed earlier
Yeah.
and we're not super exhausted, we did get a hot tub, and that has been really nice to kind of sneak outside in the evenings for even 10 minutes before bed.
Just have some alone time.
Yes.
So what does being better every day mean to you in the context of everything we've talked about?
Personally, I think just taking care of yourself, and even though we are doing all this crazy volunteering and chasing our children, checking in with yourself and, hey, I need more sleep. I'm going to bed. Kids are going to bed a half an hour earlier tonight so that I can go to bed earlier. And I should say we should sleep in longer, but that's never what I do. But I think just making sure that everything works for our family and checking in, and we do, Justin and I check in with each other and make sure, like, is this gonna work? And if there is something we need to say no to, what is that going to be to make things work? We haven't had to say no to things because it's generally working, but there are some things coming up in October that there's only one of me and I can't do it all. So I'm not going to. There are going to be events and places that are just not going to happen. So continuing to check in with yourself and with each other and making sure we're fulfilling our life the way we want to.
Well, and I think one of the cool things, I mean, obviously we're best friends. You know this. Like, Matt and I need more of our alone time than you and Justin need your alone time. But one of the cool things that you've also started to implement is the trades with your neighbors.
True.
And I'm excited to see that for you guys because I think now that your kids are older, you're like, technically they could just, like, fend for themselves for a couple hours. But your neighbors happen to have kids basically identical ages.
Yeah.
All 3 kids as well. Mm-hmm. So doing date trades has been fun to watch.
It has been fun. It kind of forces, especially they are a little more, even though they have family in town and we do not, they're a little more eager to
have alone time.
Like, have alone time and schedule it. I don't think they like to rely on their families to necessarily watch their kids all the time. So it has been fun. I mean, they know we don't have any family in town, so we have to either leave the kids alone if we want to go out on a date night, or we would just not do it.
Yeah.
And so then they'll schedule, and then that forces us to have to schedule. So it has been.
Did you ever have babysitters when they were younger?
We've had babysitters, a few. We had a family at church that had watched the kids a few times. So we've known a few, but I wouldn't say...
Nothing regular.
Nothing regular. It's just been... We just fit it in.
Well, and kind of on the whole scheduling thing, and this almost goes a little bit more towards boundaries, but you've also, like, figured out how much you can commit to and how much you can't, right? And it's funny because I obviously don't have a busy schedule. So we will, like, in January, let's be like, what weekend do you have available so that we can see you? And we try to get on their schedule as quick as possible. But it has been, even in this season, because we know how crazy your lives are, that we come to you more than you come to us. And I know someday that'll flip, probably when the kids get jealous that you'll be coming to the cities to do cool things and they'll be, like, out of the house. But... But, I mean, it's just the season you're in right now where I'm like, okay, you guys are traveling constantly for away soccer tournaments, or, I mean, now you're adding dance recitals to
competitions.
Yeah. Which, I mean, again, we're going to try to leverage those as much as possible, so I'm hopeful that we can come to you for that in February.
Yeah, and then we've really appreciated that. I mean, there is some of our families that haven't been as receptive to that, and are, a little more bummed that we don't have the availability. And right now we're prioritizing our kids and their interests, and it's such a short season that, they want to do a lot of things, and I want to see them continue to grow. And not that family isn't important. I'm not.
No, but activities are, like,
I'm not trying to deprioritize
so crazy
that.
nowadays.
as much as possible, we try to meld the two together and try to invite to those activities. And those have been some of our most fun activities as a family.
Yeah.
Like, we actually get to like see each other on those trips, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, I
if it
guess,
is
because
just
you're
us.
constantly going other
Yeah,
directions otherwise.
so I mean, we do like camping, and so we'll meld a camping trip in with a soccer weekend, and those evenings then we get to hang out together. And sometimes other soccer families will be there, and we can build some friendships along the way. But it has been a time that, hey, we can just hang out
Yeah.
as a family when we're not at home trying to fit 7 activities in one weekend.
Yeah. Do you ever meal prep dinners or anything like that, or do you just kind of make sure that they're quick?
It depends. I've done some meal prepping. Typically, I mean, since I do work from home a few days a week, those days I will occasionally start dinner earlier, just so it can be done. A crock-pot meal is kind of, meal prepping. I'll make it in the morning. It'll be ready when we get home at night. But I don't like do a whole big batch, spend all day Sunday, because there isn't a whole day Sunday to meal prep. There just isn't.
What about like veggies or anything like? I mean, like for you in particular.
Sometimes it
Just depends on the week.
It depends on the week. I do not have a regular flow when it comes to meal prepping.
So is there anything else that you like, anything that people ask you constantly or talk to you constantly that you want to include?
I think
More than a question, do you hear a statement constantly?
people just want to know how we fit it all in.
Yeah.
And I think it's come down to systems and schedules and structure and making sure we have a plan. At least I have a plan that I then communicate that plan to the rest of the family. I enjoy planning. That's part of my full-time job is, financial
FP&A,
planning.
yeah.
Yep. So planning is kind of what I do all day from a career, and then I kind of fit that into personal too. So it fits really well for us. But structures, plans, schedules, kind of how we get it done.
I feel like you're the orchestra conductor.
Yes.
Trying to keep everything on straight.
Yeah. Certainly the planning falls on me and the family, and I don't mind. I don't mind at all.
Well, you know what? I just thought of another question. So what are things that have you outsourced to help through this season of life?
So we have outsourced cleaning the house, which we had actually been doing for a few years, but on a less frequent basis. But now have a frequent person that comes every other week, which is amazing. One, it forces us to pick up the house because she will not pick up the house for us. So that forces everybody to kind of all hands on deck for sure that night before, which is always beautiful. And then she comes and cleans our house, which is great because it's hard to sustain it when we're in and out all the time. And then we try the kids do our, responsible for certain chores, which really helps kind of keep things flowing in our house. And just recently, we had some random person come to our house and ask if they could do all the bug stuff and make sure they get rid of bugs. And I wasn't going to do it because I'm like, oh, we can do that. It's no big deal. Justin will do it. Not a problem. One more thing on his list that never gets done. But then I saw 4 bugs the next morning in my bathroom. And I said, I think that's a good idea. So they're coming next week.
Nice. Yeah, we have that too. It's really nice.
That'll be nice. I mean, sometimes I cheap out, but in those cases, it has been really nice just for a few things off our list to happen.
Well, and another thing that I was thinking of that as we're having this conversation that I think is unique, extremely unique, but is going to help you even navigate your kids is human design. So we've both nerded out on human design. And, I mean, would you say that's helped at least be able to learn how to navigate your family as well?
Yeah, for sure. I've really enjoyed learning about it and getting some assistance and learning more about our family and everybody's unique design and what to lean into and what to steer away from and how to navigate some, especially on the emotional side. I think that's been really helpful. Yeah,
I'll link the Lauren Francoise, who we both used for it, but it's a kind of brief human design reading, but then she was able to look at all 5 of their designs and say, okay, here's why this person reacts this way from an energy perspective, and here's how, you get energy versus your spouse. And interestingly enough, for those who do know human design, me, Jen, my husband, and her husband, my brother, are all projectors. So I don't know, I feel like that's unique, but maybe not. And then our kids, 3 of the 4 kids between the 2 of us are manifesting generators, right? Yes, I think so.
I think so.
And so, we have some similarities even in our designs between the 2 families. So, okay, well, thank you again for having this conversation. To me, it's super helpful to get a glimpse into the different seasons and stages of life. When I mention, juggling all the things, that's going to look different by each person and each family. So none of us are perfect. None of us have it all together 100% of the time. And sometimes we all want to be ostriches with our heads in the sand. But hopefully this gives you a glimpse into different ways we are all taking steps towards being better every day. Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Being Better Everyday podcast. To see any visuals, head over to my YouTube channel. Links, socials, and resources mentioned can always be found in today's show notes. I truly appreciate you leaving a rating and review to help me reach more women looking to build systems to be peacefully productive. If you are looking for more, you can always find me on Instagram at julie.pwdesigns, sharing the behind the scenes of my everyday life as a millennial mom, corporate girly, and small business owner. Until next time, keep on taking one step at a time towards your version of being better every day.